Record.
If you're joining on your laptop, if you can leave your speaker, that'd be great.
Great. Welcome everyone to the June 22nd, 2023 Site Plan Review Committee for the Sunrise South Glebe project. We'll start by doing our usual protocol on meetings, and then we'll go around with introductions, and then we'll kick off with the staff presentation, applicant presentation, and hit the agenda after. So with that, I'll get started. All right, June 22nd, 2023. My name is Leo Sarley. I'm with the Planning Commission. We will be holding a hybrid public meeting which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per Planning Commission's meeting policy adopted on July 7th, 2022. Members of the SPRC subgroup for Sunrise South Glebe are participating both here and in person and virtually through electronic means. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meetings will run. All right, members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link project on the SPRC webpage, the project webpage, the county's events calendar, and the email notification sent to SPRC email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For subgroup members joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please connect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you're called upon. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in a moment. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes: the SPRC subgroup members who need technical assistance, and to members of the public who add their name to the list for public comments, which will be taken at the end of the meeting. Teams chat should not be used for discussion. Those who are planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public comment period. If the subgroup member participating virtually wishes to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed and raise your virtual hand in Teams. I will monitor the video feeds that are on as an indicator of who would like to speak. If subgroup members are participating via phone today without the video option, please announce your name and group you are representing now, and I will verbally check in to see if you wish to be recognized, as you do not have the video feed option.
Right, there are no call-in guests.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Okay. For members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment, you will be called upon to speak at the end of the meeting, and we will allot 2 minutes to speak for tonight's agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. If you wish to speak, please enter your name at the meeting chat for virtual attendees, or provide staff with your name if in person, and you will be added to the speakers list. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded, posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. Great. That was good. All right. With that, let's start a round of introductions. So we'll do the table first, and then we'll do the folks on the back, and then, wait, do we usually do and then we'll do the virtual, right? Yeah. All right, let's do it that way. So I'm Leo Sarley with the Planning Commission and chair of this SPRC.
Jim Lantelme, Planning Commission.
Leah Bagley, Planning Commission.
Kendrick Whitmore with Venable.
Clyde McGraw with Sunrise Senior Living.
Carrie Thompson with the Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission.
Evan Hine, Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Audrey Kramer with the Arlington Commission on Aging.
And I'm Kevin Lamb with the Planning Division.
Chrissy Wallentish, Planning Division.
Chris Turnbull with Wells and Associates.
Hunter Berry, Sunrise Senior Living.
Stephanie Tinscher, Restoring Architecture.
Matt Fleming, Restoring Architecture.
Crossett, Land Design.
Travis Brown with Walter L. Phillips, Civil Engineer.
Great. Who do we have online? All right, Commissioner Berkey.
Yep, Eric Berkey, Planning Commission. Karen Guevara, Planning Commission.
Kevin Yam, Economic Development Commission.
And we see you, Stephen, on the screen.
Hi, yes, Steve Kleppen from Arlington Heights Civic Association.
Great.
Thank you.
And that should be everyone on the SPRC.
Great. All right. So with that, I think we'll start with, do we have any presentations today?
Yes, so both staff and applicant.
Great. I think that's what I said earlier on, but I just didn't see it on the agenda. All right. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. All right, so good evening, everyone again. I'm Kevin Lamb with the Planning Division, and tonight I'll be providing a brief presentation on the Sunrise South Glebe project. So I will let the applicant kind of run through some of the project updates since the first SPRC meeting, but tonight I will be going over these SPRC discussion topics. So we have transportation, green building and sustainability, and then community benefits. So here again, I just wanted to orient everyone to the site and the existing conditions. So on the site, currently there is a vacant single-family house. There's also the large church building, which has been occupied by the Redeemer Church of Arlington, as well as a daycare and a preschool, all of which have successfully relocated to other spots in Arlington, which is great. Then directly adjacent to the site is the Alcova House, which is a private residence, but also designated a local historic district in the county. And then the site is bounded by 7th Street to the north, Glebe Road to the east, and then 8th Street to the south. So here is a view of the site layout. As you can see, the building is oriented towards Glebe Road with a one-way driveway coming off of Glebe Road that serves the main entrance area in Porte Cochere, as well as a few short-term parking spaces. And then coming off of 8th Street to the south, we have access to the large surface parking lot, as well as a secondary entrance to the building. And then off 7th Street to the north, we have a short driveway which provides service to the covered loading and trash area. So in terms of parking, the applicant will be providing 54 spaces, which will serve not only residents, but also visitors and employees. This works out to a parking ratio of 0.45 spaces per bedroom. And the applicant is requesting a reduced parking ratio since the zoning ordinance requirement is 0.5 spaces per bedroom. And then in terms of bike parking, the applicant is providing 6 spaces for visitors, which will be in the form of a bike rack by the front, and then also 4 spaces in some covered bike racks for employees in the rear. And the facility will also include a employee shower facility as well as lockers. In terms of the streetscape, the applicant will be improving all 3 sides of the site. So the sidewalks will be expanded to 6 feet, and then the planting strips will be expanded to 5.5 feet. And all 3 sides will be lined with street trees, which will be either planted in the planting strip or at the back of the sidewalk on site, given some of the utility conflicts. Moving on to sustainability, the applicant isn't requesting additional bonus density for their site plan. Therefore, they aren't participating in the Green Building Incentive Program. However, the The project will conform to the standard site plan conditions, which have other sustainability commitments, these being LEED Silver certification and energy optimization performance improvement of at least 20%, Energy Star appliances and WaterSense fixtures, as well as 10 years of energy reporting. In addition, in terms of community benefits, again, since they aren't pursuing bonus density, they are, relatively limited compared to other site plans that do request bonus density. However, the project will be subject to the base affordable housing contribution, which will be either in the form of a cash contribution, on-site units, or off-site units. And then also, as I mentioned, the applicant is providing improvements to the streetscape and sidewalk on Glebe 7th and 8th. So in terms of the public review process, it kicked off back in February, which was followed by an online engagement opportunity in March. And then we had the first SPRC meeting back in late April. And looking ahead, we are anticipating going to the commissions and county board this fall. And then lastly, in terms of community engagement, as I mentioned, we did hold an online feedback opportunity late March, where we received 34 respondents. We also conducted community outreach to the Alcova Heights and Arlington Heights Civic Associations, as well as the standard promotional activities through e-newsletters, social media, as well as on the county's webpage. So that concludes my presentation, and happy to pass it off to the applicant for theirs.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Close the microphone. All right, we did it. Good evening, everyone. I'm Clyde McGraw with Sunrise Senior Living. I've been told I have about 10 minutes. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to try to go through this very quickly. I'm, of course, very happy to come back at the end or answer any questions that you all have. So unfortunately, the color here is a little bit off, so you won't be able to see all of our wonderful green images. But to start, there were a number of follow-ups from our first SPRC that I wanted to tackle head on here first. So Kevin already reminded everyone where our site is on South Glebe between 8th and 7th here, the former United Arlington Methodist Church, a large service parking lot, and the former pastor's house at the northeast corner of the site. Here we have what was our former siting of our building on the site here. And this is our update here. Now it's going to be a little bit hard to tell unless you're coming over and look at my screen. But we actually we shifted the building 6 feet to the east, closer to Glebe Road. And this was done in response to requests from staff. And what this allows us to do is allows the building to better hold the street line with Glebe Road for a little bit more of an urban condition. And so by doing that, we were able to move our building further away from our neighbors. We were also able to shrink the front drop-off area to reduce some of the asphalt there. And we also, again, per staff request, took a detailed look at the porte cochere and shrunk the design of that to make it a little bit more urban and less suburban looking and feeling, which we'll have more images of later. The existing landscape space today, you can see in hatching where some of the green areas are today, obviously large surface parking lot. This is our previous landscape space here in green. And this is that landscape space today. So there have been a number of improvements we wanted to share with all of you. So first of all, we've shifted the building, as I mentioned, 6 feet to the east. This allowed us to introduce even further biophilic and native plantings to the site. It also allowed us to increase that rear courtyard. The SPRC had requested that we look at that to see if we'd expand it. So now that space has grown by over 800 square feet. We're also able to, by shifting the building, introduce further planting strips within that parking lot. So now we have an additional row of trees in the parking lot. And we're actually able to further expand the landscaping on the western edge of the property that fronts our neighbors, including the Alcova House. We were able to add, per SPRC request, 2 areas of green roof, both on the porte cochere and on the loading dock. So I'll circle that here, the porte cochere and the loading dock in the rear. And finally, we were actually able to further decrease asphalt by over 3,000 square feet. And so we were able to do that by 2 ways. One, by shifting the building to the east, we were able to shrink the driveway in the front very slightly. The other item was we were able to introduce permeable pavers, which I'd like to get into more details here in a second. So this is that same landscape plan without the hatching on it. I wanted to make sure we showed this just to show how green and vibrant the landscaping here is going to be on site. And I also do want to point out the permeable pavers. I think it's an important thing to note. So it was a request from SPRC. We did take it back and we studied it very diligently. The challenge with the site is there's a lot of conflicts because of utilities running through the site where you can't have permeable pavers. What we found though is this entire strip, which is very hard for you all to see, but the entire strip of parking on the west side, we are able to have permeable pavers. So we went from having none before to actually 3,000 square feet of pavers moving forward, which we're thrilled for. So moving on to some of the architectural views of the site. This is the original view. This is the view we showed last time at SPRC from Glebe Road. And this is our new view today. So the first thing I'll point out is the porte cochere, as I mentioned. We worked to shrink the overall size of this. We also flattened the roof. That allowed us to have the green roof there. We also made a number of updates to the design, and it's really driven by 2 factors. One, to be more reflective of the neighborhood design, and also be more reflective of the arts and crafts style. So we worked with the color palette to introduce a richer color palette that we think is a little bit more reflective of the neighborhood. In addition, at the top here, we had vertical siding before, and now we've actually introduced architectural shingles there. This is the view of 7th and Glebe. This was the previous view. This is our new view today. So just a couple things to point out. First of all, hopefully you felt the presence a little bit. We're definitely holding that street wall a little bit more, which we think is a really nice feature. In addition, we've upgraded the stone at the base of the building to be more reflective of what we've actually found in the actual neighborhood. And here's a view from 8th and Glebe. And here's our updated view. So a couple things to point out. Before we had kind of a monolithic brick design, and now we actually have a blended brick design that we think is a much nicer feature here. In addition, for request from SPRC, where available, we've actually shrunk windows. So this is a good opportunity to show you on the left side here. You can see some of the windows here. We've been able to reduce the size as we have in other places. It's just a good example. And then finally, the view of the rear of the building. We showed this at the last SPRC. We said we were committed to further reducing the massing in the rear closest to our residential neighbors. That's highlighted in green. And here's that new view today. I think the easiest place to see it's on the left side here. This is the north wing. We've reduced the massing there. It's a little bit tougher to see here because of the tree, but the massing has also been reduced on this corner of the building as well. And finally, we had a number of questions about landscaping, how it's really going to look and feel on the site. So we have a number of images around the site I'd love to share with everyone. So this is, if you're standing on 8th Street, you're looking east towards Glebe Road, just highlighting just the absolute beautiful landscaping all along the building, lots of green area, and on this side of the project, street trees, both outbound and inbound to the sidewalk. Here's another one of those images on 8th Street looking towards Glebe Road. Here we have the corner of 8th and Glebe. This, again, a request from SPRC to study the bus stop and how we can enhance the landscaping there. So we've really focused on enhancing the landscaping all around the bus stop. Here's another view of that. We do want to highlight this. Staff had a number of questions and requests about our small parking area here. It's important for our operations to have a couple limited amount of temporary spaces. It's really just for short-term drop-off and pickup. Obviously, it's a very small parking lot. It'll be very well landscaped from the street, as you can see here. This is a view of Glebe Road looking south. I'll point out again the porte cochere with the flat roof, so we can have the green roof here. Obviously, street trees I'll get into this in more detail, but there are a number of issues with utility conflicts. So the street trees here will actually be inbound to the sidewalk. And then this is a view of 7th Street looking east. Again, street trees inbound, but still street trees all along the frontage, as well as wonderful landscaping along the edge of the building. And then finally, in terms of new views, I'll just pause for a second so everyone can reorientate themselves. We had a number of questions of what our rear garden was going to look and feel like. So we produced a number of images. So this is if you're in the rear of the building, you're standing on the south side of the garden looking north. And so you can see here there's going to be a number of walking paths, abundance of trees and other landscaping, as well as open areas for events and games for our residents. This is the view if you've moved a little bit further north in that space. Now you're looking at the northern end. As of right now, we are programming this space as being kind of our garden center. One of our most popular clubs for our residents is typically our garden club. Residents absolutely love the garden, especially in an environment like Northern Virginia. So we'll have that planned here. I love this image. You can see the wonderful tomato plants on the left. Hopefully they get that big and beautiful. And this is looking now south. So you can see kind of just how expansive this green space will be. Finally, one more image just to show the detail of the wonderful different variety of native plants we'll have in the area. That's my hopefully quick catch up from last time, now into new topics. So first off, transportation, kind of a macro map. Obviously, we're the orange dot there in the bottom. This is just highlighting the metro system in Arlington. Obviously, we all know Arlington's got a wonderful metro system. Our closest station is Ballston. It's about 1.5 miles up Glebe Road. This is a little bit more zoomed in. Our site here, right in the middle of the page. The bus network in this area is wonderful. Obviously, the bus stop literally in front of the building. There's also a number of bus stops up and down Glebe Road and along Columbia Pike. In addition, there are a number of bike share stations around the site as well. We do find that the site is extremely well connected by both sidewalks, roadways, bus lines, metro, and bicycle facilities. We've also studied the amount of vehicular trips that are going to be generated here. And what we found is our project is actually going to reduce the number of vehicular trips compared to what's there today with the church and daycare use. We had this slide last time. Our programming has not changed in terms of our square footage, number of units. As Kevin mentioned, we will have 54 parking spaces, which is a ratio of about 0.55 per unit. Just to look at some of the building access here, from the top of the page, trucks will come down Glebe Road. They'll come down 7th and pull into the site. All truck movements will occur on site. They will back into the loading dock. It'll be a completely enclosed loading space. They'll unload and then pull out to the light here at 7th and exit. For short-term vehicular trips, drop-offs for Amazon, UPS, they'll pull into the front for the drop-off here and then pull out. And for both employee and long-term visitor parking, that's that yellow dot here down E Street into the rear parking area with a rear entrance. In addition, Kevin mentioned we will be providing bike parking. There will be 3 bike parking racks in the front, 2 in the rear for our visitors and employees. And we do provide both locker rooms and shower facilities for our employees. A couple other items on transportation. At the corner of 7th and Glebe, we will be providing new curb ramps. There will be new pedestrian push buttons. We'll also provide an easement for new county control equipment. And at 8th and Glebe, there will also be new curb ramps as well as new striping done by Sunrise for that intersection. Wanted to touch on the pedestrian experience, in particular on Glebe Road. So to be perfectly honest, the experience that's there today is not a wonderful one. There's an existing retaining wall. There are no street trees. The sidewalk's only 5 feet wide, and you're only 1.5 feet off the curb. It's really, as I said, not a great experience today. However, we think we are going to vastly improve the experience. So for on Glebe Road, that retaining wall will be removed. We will be installing a landscape buffer. You will be fully 5.5 feet set back from the curb, and the sidewalk will be expanded from 5 to 6 feet on Glebe. On 7th and 8th, where there are 4-foot sidewalks, those will be expanded to 6 feet. So just a couple of sections here. This is Glebe Road looking south. The white on the right is the building. There'll be a landscaped area of street trees, 6-foot sidewalk, and 5.5-foot buffer. This is 8th Street looking west. Building on the right side, landscaped area, 6-foot sidewalk, 5.5-foot buffer with street trees on East Street. And finally, 7th Street, also looking west, 5.5-foot buffer, 6-foot sidewalk, and then inbound street trees there. And finally, at the last SPRC, we had a number of questions about how it would look and feel looking west towards our residential neighbors, in particular the Alcova House. So this is that view from within the parking lot, the Alcova House in the rear here. There will be tree islands with plantings and trees within the parking lot, a small knee wall, and then very robust plantings and trees. And then beyond that, the neighbor's fence and their trees. So there'll be quite a lot of buffer between our parking lot and the neighbor. And then to touch on sustainability quickly, I'm proud to say that we will, after a tremendous amount of work from our team, be able to hit LEED Silver for the project. That includes also optimizing our energy performance, making sure that we're hitting at least 20% of savings, hopefully a little bit more. We'll also be hitting a number of the Arlington Community Priority credits, including envelope commissioning, and as well as the light pollution reduction. Finally, at our last SPRC, there are a number of questions about using bird-friendly materials. So this is something our team took back and studied quite intently. So what we found was that the use of UV coatings for what they call bird glass is typically used for kind of storefront or curtain wall systems. So you imagine a glass skyscraper in Arlington or a residential project that's a high rise that's all glass. They typically make glass that they call bird glass or something like that. For our projects, for Sunrise, we really prefer a residential look and feel of our windows. It's typically not something that's readily available in terms of having what they call bird glass. So it's not something we've been able to easily find. So we've been looking at what are the other options we could use. The second option we looked at is, do we have fritting on our glass? Unfortunately, what we found is that fritting can be very confusing for seniors, especially those with dementia. It can also reduce the amount of light and views that come into the units. So we said, okay, what is an option that can work, that can be bird friendly? And what we found is that actually insect screens are an excellent bird deterrent. And we provide insect screens on all of our windows. And so it actually provides better bird-friendly material than even the bird glass or having frit. So we're very confident this is going to be a bird-friendly project. I actually went and met with our head of facilities that helps manage our 300 sunrises across North America. And he said we didn't have a single reportable incident of a bird impact of any of our buildings that he was aware of the 20 years that he's worked here. So we're very confident that with our design, with our residential windows, with our screens, it'll be a very bird-friendly. Okay, how did I do?
That's a compliment. It's a good presentation. We'll go with that. Okay, so on the agenda tonight, we have any comments and feedbacks to the applicant relative to our last meeting. So we'll start there, and then we'll roll into the sustainability, and then we'll do transportation. So we're slightly changing the sequence of tonight's agenda. So first I want to start with any questions, any clarifications, or any comments to the changes that have occurred since the last meeting. Yeah.
I just, because bird-friendly glass topic comes up in most of our SPRCs now, can one of you get to me, just so I have it for my future reference, whatever studies that you cited that, you know, elders who have dementia, that this causes this, and then the insect screen thing. So that would be helpful to me as I sit through so many of these, and we are always talking about it.
I would love to see that too on the C2E2 commission.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what is fritter?
Fritting is
Fritting.
It's the little dots.
It's kind of like what's on the glass behind you. It's a texture that
Okay,
goes on the glass.
yeah, all right.
Right.
Yep.
Any other questions? I'll go with Pam and then Doris.
I really like your refined design. I have a question about the back of the building. Are those like balconies, screen things? I can't tell what they are.
Yes.
And that didn't come up before. There's a good view from the garden, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing here on the third floor is actually a balcony space for our residents with dementia. So there's a secured floor for them on the third floor. Of course, we want to have outdoor space for them as well. So that's what this space is here. So this is just a covered patio below them.
Okay.
Is that new?
No, I think we had it before. It's just maybe it's just more apparent now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Doris.
And I apologize, I
No problem.
At any rate, I was wondering if you had said anything about an affordable housing. And because of the need really for affordable senior and senior independent and assisted living. And going right along with that, could you tell me again, I know I asked last time, but the total number of units and how many will be type A accessible and how many will be Fair Housing Act accessible, which I presume is 100%. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, Doris, I'll address the affordable question, and then I'll let Clyde talk to the unit question. So we've looked really hard at this. We've heard a lot of comments from you and from others about the need for affordable senior care in Arlington. I used to be on the board of Culpeper Gardens, so I know how much goes into that and how little there is here. One of the things we've struggled with in looking at it is the ability to discount the rent versus discounting the care, right? It ends up being a very different economic metric because, you know, Sunrise provides food, they provide some basic assistance, they provide transportation. And so these are additional costs on top of the rent that you would see in an affordable, say, apartment project. It would also be the equivalent of, okay, we're going to provide reduced rents, but we're also going to cover some transportation costs and cover food costs, some of these other items that go into that. So that's why it's been something we've been looking at over time, and it's not as easy to kind of pin down as your typical apartments. That being said, we are, as Kevin mentioned in his slides, we are going to be meeting the affordable housing requirements of the ordinance. So we're going to have the zoning ordinance has a requirement for affordable housing contributions that can be cash or on-site units. That doesn't have to be determined until you're into the permitting process. So we are going to agree in our conditions that we're going to comply with that affordable housing condition and the requirements of the ordinance.
You mean the base?
Correct. That's right. That's right.
And so there will be nothing on site.
Well, possibly.
Is what I'm
We don't know yet. It's something that is, there's before your, I think it's the footing to grade permit, you have to give notice to the county that you're either going to provide a cash payment, provide on-site units, provide off-site units is another way to meet that requirement. So there are multiple ways to do it. And you don't commit, that doesn't end up being chosen at this point. It's kind of down the road during the permitting process.
And
Type A accessible units.
yeah, the number of type A units that you're going to have. I mean, in like hard numbers, are you doing 2%, 10%?
No, I appreciate you bringing that up again. I do remember you asked the last time we did discuss it. And I believe the insurance is 10%, but I have my architecture team to
10,
confirm.
so that works out to 10.
Yep, to 10 units, 10%.
It's what now? I'm sorry.
10.
10. You're going to include 10%. So how many would the total be, and how many?
So there are 99 total units, so 9.9 obviously round up.
It would be 10. So it would be 10. It would be 10. Basically. Unless you're a little bit stingy. But so it's 10 out of 100.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's a commitment right now.
Yes.
Great, thank you, Doris.
Oh, and how many of them are going to be? There's some that are going to be assisted living, or they're all senior independent living?
No, it's all assisted living and memory care. It'll be about 2/3 assisted living and 1/3 memory care.
So there is some. So it's kind of like the Jefferson.
The Jefferson has mostly independent living. There is, I believe, 1 or potentially 2 floors that have assisted living and memory care. So it's only assisted living and memory care, not independent living. The difference being independent living is typically for seniors where there's no care provided, but for the seniors of this community, there will be care provided for all.
Okay, because that's, it's the model. It's
Correct.
similar model.
Thanks, Doris.
Angie and Sarah, do you want
Yeah. Let's do a quick introduction. We have two planning commissioners join us. Devanshi is on here, and Sarah, if you don't mind including a quick introduction.
Devanshi Patel, Planning Commission. Yeah, she's got other things distracting her, yeah. Great. Any other questions? Pam?
You go first.
So, yeah, let me go with Audrey first.
I just want to mirror the comment about the need for affordable assisted living in Arlington. I chair the Housing Committee of the Commission on Aging. Population that is growing quicker than any other population in Arlington, and we really need the units. I want to really do that.
Thank you. Pam?
I second that, and I think everybody on this committee really supports having the PhD. But my question, and you partially answered it, thank you. I am concerned about transportation and pedestrian experience, so my concern is how many pedestrians who live there are actually going to have pedestrian experiences. So you said that 1/3 of them are in memory care, and they are always in the building. Do they ever get out?
Yeah, yes, of course they get out. It's secured so that they don't wander on their own. So they are, of course, brought by staff and their family members frequently. They're just on a floor where there isn't easy access, otherwise there's a tendency of them to wander off site.
But they don't really leave the ground.
They certainly have the ability to, as long as they are accompanied either by a team member or their family.
And anyone in the assisted living has the option to go wherever they want. And some of those do drive.
Yes, but to be honest, it's very rare that we have residents that have their own car.
Okay, with that, your future question, we get to parking.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Pam.
One
Yeah.
quick thing, we are going to be discussing affordable housing as part of community benefits, correct?
Yes. So, yeah, just a reminder of the agenda. We're going to do sustainability starting now, I think. I think we're kind of done with wrapping up previous meeting conversation issues. And then we'll do transportation, and then we'll do community benefits. All right, with that, we're going to start sustainability. If no one has anything else, no hands up, no camera. All right.
Thanks very much. Again, Carrie Thompson. I'm with the C2E2 Commission, Climate Change, Energy, and Environment. Our commission unfortunately wasn't represented at the first SPRC because it was the same night as our commission meeting. So I looked at materials and looked at the recording of the first SPRC. And essentially, I find on the sustainability side, I think, especially with some of the improvements you've made over time, I think it looks really nice. The building is super attractive and the landscaping looks nice. It's great that as compared to status quo now, the landscape spaces and tree canopy will increase and the asphalt impermeable surface will decrease. And even better, I had it as a note that how about pavers? And then you just said it. I'm wondering if you also might consider a 2-story parking garage to even shrink the footprint. I mean, I just put that out there. It may be all sorts of cost implications, but it's another way to get more green space, should that be something you wanted to do. However, on the green building side, it is the most unambitious project that our commission has seen. And most of them, I will grant, are participating in the Green Building Incentive Program, which is voluntary. And I know that you've chosen not to, but what is not voluntary is the fact that we're facing a climate crisis. Arlington County, in our community energy plan, has adopted a goal as of a number of years ago that we will be a carbon neutral county and community by 2050. And we are pushing our commission, every new development that comes into the county to strive as hard as it can to reduce emissions. It really I noticed on the beginning of your first presentation that that Sunrise is a champion for quality of life for all seniors, but we need to champion the quality of life for all Arlingtonians. And I know I'm getting on soapbox a little bit, but it's a really important point. And I'm wondering what is holding you back from making more improvements on the green building side. Very specifically, you have fossil fueled building systems, domestic hot water, the HVAC. You don't mention cooking, but I'm guessing possibly it's gas or maybe it's electric. I don't know. But what really needs to be fixed to help advance Arlington's goals in that regard are HVAC and hot water should be electric. And at an absolute minimum, make the building electric ready for HVAC and for domestic hot water. The energy efficiency must be significantly increased. And you made that point that you are striving and you're hoping to get above 20%. I did look at the original and revised LEED scorecard, and energy and atmosphere is one of the weakest areas on the scorecard. And there's so many points left on the table that it seems to me, with further efforts and intention, given the climate crisis, that you might make some improvements. I mean, essentially, that's the key point. Our commission would be really pleased to talk with you further if you wanted more ideas or hearing a little bit more about what some of the other applicants have done. There are also a number of organizations out there that coach organizations about how to reduce carbon emissions. There is the option, and this is sort of the gold standard, of doing a zero carbon energy assessment of the project, which contributes ideas on how to make the building less carbon intensive. So that's my key message here. There's a lot of details associated with that. You probably saw a really extensive checklist, and that was probably frightening to see it, especially the score on it. That checklist belongs to our commission. It's not part of the county's documents. I think you know that it's not associated with the Green Building Incentive Program, but it's our way of trying to communicate that we're living in a new reality. And I think the building is really beautiful, and I'd love to see that you are installing beautiful systems that are going to provide cleaner air for Arlington, for the state, for the country. More prosaically, I did notice that you will have some in the parking area, some EV charging. I see one point on the LEED scorecard, and there's a mention of it. Our commission, the Arlington standard for those projects that go through the Green Building Incentive Program is, I think, 4 or 5% of parking spaces with EV chargers and 10% that are electric ready. And our commission urges you to consider making 50% of the parking lots electric ready. Now, this project may be slightly different because many of the people who are coming to park are not living there. And so, I will grant you that maybe it doesn't make as much sense. But in apartment buildings where people live and stay overnight, obviously in their car stay overnight, in the future, we're going to have electric vehicles. And so that's something we push. Let me see if there's any other detail. Again, I would just welcome reach out if you'd like any more information. We're happy to share ideas and thoughts. So thanks, and a beautiful project.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Terry. I will sort of align myself with those comments. I think the other thing that I was thinking as I was preparing for this meeting, on the Sunrise Glebe North, I feel like we've run into like a short building life cycle, because that 80s, late 80s, or whenever it was built, building is already being torn down. And so I'm wondering, right, if part of the environmental agenda is sort of future-proofing the structure a little bit and making sure that, sort of more energy efficient and whatnot, and, ready for electrification or whatnot. So as much as you can sort of look into that, I also would, encourage that. Okay, with that, anyone want to opine or comment on the sustainability item. All right, I strongly encourage also you to connect with the E2C2.
Okay,
Yeah, I
great.
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Great. All right, is that it? Thank you, Commissioner Carey, and we will now switch to transportation.
Is Chris coming?
He didn't indicate.
You're on
Chris, yeah,
Transportation Commission.
He's out.
Yes.
Who wants to start?
I'll start.
No, go ahead.
I have all kinds of things for parking. So most of the residents are not driving. So who is actually using the parking lot?
It's typically used by employees and visitors.
But employees, I think I read this, like the maximum is like 30 in the shift or something,
Right, our largest shift, which is typically 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., is typically about 30 employees.
which doesn't begin to fill the parking lot. And hopefully a bunch of those are going to not drive.
Yes.
So is it that many visitors all the time?
It's a combination of both employees and visitors. Correct.
Okay. And it's usually full at your other site?
I wouldn't say it's full. It ebbs and flows depending on time of day. Lunchtime, dinner time is more frequent when family members come to visit. When
Weekends and things.
Mhm.
And do you feel that there's sufficient parking along 7th Street and 8th Street if it happens to be full, that people can just park on the street there?
We think we have plenty of parking within our parking lot to fulfill the needs.
I like how you greened up the parking lot a bit.
Thank you.
How do people, it seems like a really kind of tight, wavy parking lot. How do people, if you end up in the end of the parking lot, how do you get back out? Is there room to do that easily?
Yes, so there's really only 2 drive aisles in the parking lot. So let's say you're going south down Glebe, you make a right turn, you pull in the parking lot. You're either going to park in this first row, or you pull here and either park in this row here or park in the rear. So I guess the furthest you'd go is you pull into the rear and park, and then when you come out this way to.
But there's plenty of room to back up.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And you provide a van for,
We do.
the van parks somewhere too? Is it one van,
Yes,
2 vans, 3 vans?
it's one van that it fits into a normal parking.
And at some point you'll tell us what you do with the van.
Yes, I could tell you right now if you'd like.
No, we'll go on to other things, but I'm glad you have that. Okay, and for the loading dock, what types of vehicles normally load and unload in your loading docks? I mean, you're not going to have moving vans and stuff. You don't expect to have really large trucks in there, garbage trucks.
Yeah, garbage trucks and delivery trucks for food and supplies to the building.
Nothing that's 50 feet long.
No, but we've also sized it to be able to fit the largest trucks we'd expect.
Okay,
Mhm.
and there's plenty of room there for these drivers to easily turn around.
Yeah, we have the best civil engineers in the business here, and they've planned it all out for us.
Okay. Okay, it's a little awkward. All right. And your kudos space in the front, how many spaces do you have there?
I believe it's 4 spaces.
4 spaces. Okay. And somebody will monitor them to make sure people aren't there.
Absolutely.
And I assume there's like a reception area right at the beginning?
Yeah, so when you walk in, the main desk is right here, right when you walk in.
So somebody can help the kudo people who are talking.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. Okay, walking.
Yes.
So there's 2 entrance exits there. Is there an entrance exit on the north end anywhere?
I imagine there is an emergency egress.
Okay,
exit,
but
yes.
not a regular one.
Right, so the main entrance is here on Glebe. The secondary entrance is from the rear where this yellow dot is, and I'm sure architects could tell you there'll be a number of other doors around the building for emergency exits.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there not an exit on the north end?
We like to, there is, I'm sure that there is an emergency exit on the north end. But it's not designed for people to come in and out because we want the building to be generally secure. Just like any building, you don't want people just coming in and out.
It's a long way from
Yes,
this.
right.
Okay. All right. And the path that goes around, can one walk all the way around the site?
You can walk all the way around except for here. There is no access through the loading dock because there is actually a grade change here, which would require retaining walls and stairs, which are not super senior friendly. So if someone was to go for a walk around, you could go all the way around the building. And then And then we designed it actually with a terminus here, where you can either connect to the sidewalk or just turn around and come right back around.
There, right at that corner there at the end of the parking lot,
Mhm.
there is a path that goes west.
So right here, so the sidewalk or within the
No,
block?
no, it's up at the corner of the parking lot.
Here?
Do you mean
Oh.
here?
Yeah, right there, right there. Yeah, there's a
Yes.
path that goes off there.
Yes.
Is that gonna still be available?
No, that is a separately owned path that is not part of our property, so that will be fenced off.
And does the community know that you're closing that off?
Yes.
Okay, you're okay with that? It's a beautiful path. A wonderful playground down there, so.
I know, so the church actually, they own both the property here and they owned a property here where there was a playground. That playground is being purchased separately, so there will be no more connection.
That's too bad.
Mhm.
And how wide is the path?
That's there today?
That you're building around the, semi around the property?
The sidewalk or the path of
path.
the walking path?
Path.
You have that, Travis?
I believe it's 6 feet.
Oh, okay.
It's, I'm sorry, it's 5 feet.
5 feet on the site, but the sidewalk is
The
6 feet.
internal sidewalk is 5 feet.
Okay, the external is 6 feet.
Public is 6.
Oh, and is the path going to be lit after dark?
We have lighting, Andrea, in the middle of the path?
I mean, we could add some just really low level forward walking lights.
Be nice to have
Do
something.
that at time of, like, when we get to like.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay. Streetscape. I'm very excited that you have made wider sidewalks and wider landscaping zone. My fear is they're going to be a little bit inadequate down the pike because I see Columbia Pike growing this way and Arlington Boulevard going that way. And I think Glebe is going to be hugely developed for the next few years, and there's going to be a lot more pedestrian and biking activity in there. So it'd be wonderful if you could expand the 6 feet on Glebe. But saying that, my other issue with that is older pedestrians like me are slower and they don't see as well, they don't hear as well. We take up more space. We come with mobility devices. We come in wheelchairs. We often travel in groups. So 6 feet starts to be a little bit difficult going both ways. Those are two factors. And when you plant trees close to there, which I love, make sure that we don't get tree root heaves. And break up. You don't want to know how many times I have fallen and done bad damage by finding tree root heaves. So I correctly ask somebody how to do that. Glebe Street is horrible. It is, and a lot of these questions are now really more for Rob and Beatrice. There's speeding, it's curvy, the sightlines are terrible, it's hilly, and it's not really your concern, but I hope the county is working on that to make it better.
Yes, and this is outside our purview, but I do know just south of us at the intersection of Glebe and Columbia Pike, they are doing a study there for the intersection.
Right. And I'm concerned about the intersection of 7th and Glebe, and that 7th is totally out of alignment. And the crosswalk then is really at an angle, so pedestrians are going further. And because they're not aligned at some point, we can't see the traffic as well, so it is more of a risk to us. So again, that's probably nothing you can fix, and you are making some improvements to monitor. And again, this is not you, the travel lanes are 12 feet wide. I believe why. That's just insane. And eventually there's supposed to be bike facilities on Glebe, so I hope they narrow the lanes. That may be it. Jim, what do you want to add?
A question for the sidewalks and the strip between the curb and the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Is that going to be public right of way, or will it be in public easement on the property that you're building that used to be part of the property?
Sorry, say that again?
Since the sidewalk is being widened, it's being shifted to add the green strip. that's now on what had been private property is remaining private property as a public easement, or is it being deeded to the county to be public right of way?
I think, Travis, you'd answer that?
Yeah, so the majority of the grass strip and the sidewalk will be in the right of way, but a portion of the sidewalk will be in a public access sidewalk easement. The applicant will be.
Okay.
If it's not in the right of way, they'll be an easement over it.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't know where the public right of way and private.
Yeah,
property-
it's not a straight line, it's a little bit.
It's really weird in the county. There's a lot of, sometimes private property goes in the middle of the street.
Right.
Okay. Parking, I definitely support dropping required percentage, so if you're going down, that makes perfect sense to me. I'd love that if in the future, it's clear that the lot isn't being used that much, that you have a lot of extra spaces, that at some point be converted to green space, open space, landscape space, amenity space for the residents, so that we're not having even more asphalt. I mean, it's great the way you shrunk the asphalt. It's really, really good. Including the listening, I think it's great that you shrank the port cochere area and shrank in the back and add more green. That was definitely direction we all wanted to go. So kudos. But going forward in the decades to come, if it turns out you don't need those spaces, seriously consider pulling that up and turning that over to green space. Given that there is still a pretty decent amount of asphalt here, how are you dealing with the stormwater issues?
Travis, you want to take that?
So with the actual vehicular asphalt, we're filtering it through underground cartridges. So there'll be a large facility with multiple underground cartridges that they'll be replaced every couple of years. So it's sort of like a Brita filter for your parking lot. The roof water will go through fire retention facilities located on the north and south side.
Okay, good, thank you. Where, I know there's one bus stop right in front. Where's the other direction bus stop?
By 7.
It's by 7.
Yeah.
So but that's still,
And then-
it's still pretty
right-
nice at crossing.
It's right across. It's right
Well,
across.
there's a traffic light.
Oh, there is a traffic.
Yeah.
light.
The corner
Okay,
of
great.
7.
It's just
That's
a
great.
terrible
Yeah.
long diagonal
Okay.
across.
Yeah, 'cause
And
the
both-
impression I had was.
Both bus shelters are great. They're big, there's a double bench, there's a wide
Okay,
space.
so we're in really good shape on that.
Yeah, there's no problems at all.
Okay, great, perfect.
As far as I looked at them.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, yeah, those are the only questions I have.
Great, thank you, Jim. Nia?
Yeah, and I may have missed this, but where are the handicap trails?
Good
So,
question.
I can, to make sure I give you the exact right answer, I know that there is one directly in the front and then 2 in the rear entrance, is that correct?
Yeah.
So there, you can see there, it's a little bit hard to tell on the screen here, but there's one right by the front drop off and then there's 2 right by the rear entrance.
So they would be able to come in that way.
Yep, absolutely.
Is 3 enough for this type of facility? Because even people visiting often are coming in handicapped vehicles because they're friends or whatever. I'm just curious, that seems.
It's a good question, and so it's something we have studied at Sunrise. We do find it's enough because the other option we have is the porta share. So what we find typically is that a lot of people, their family members will drop them off right at the front and not need to utilize the.
Now, if you find that they're always filled, would you then redistribute?
Of course, we could always restrict.
And they can easily enter from that entrance on that side.
Yes, either the front entrance or the rear entrance.
Thank you. I'm going to go online for Mr. Eric, Commissioner Eric, and then you, Doris.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question about the porte-cochere. Porte-cochere, I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Is there, yeah, exactly. Is there any calming measure, like any little speed bump? Is there anything just to prevent folks from whipping in and out? I know some of our newer developments along the pike have utilized this. So I'm just thinking about our enhanced pedestrian experience. I really appreciate the wide sidewalks and distance from the curb and the other things that the applicant's done here. So is that something that's either being considered or maybe could be considered? Thanks.
Travis, you probably have the best answer to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can take a look at that. I mean, right now, the sidewalks are, there's no curb cuts. The vehicles go up an apron to get over the sidewalk and then come into the portico share area. We'll have bollards protecting, pedestrians walking on the sidewalk that runs underneath the portico shares, so they'll be protected. There will be hexagonal domes so people can feel their way across the vehicular crossing. So there's some things that we're providing now, and we'll continue to look at, that makes the residents and visitors and pedestrians safer.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? Oh, Doris, sorry. You're next.
A couple of things. What did you say the parking ratio is, and is it only an outdoor lot, an open lot rather than an underground lot?
Correct, it's only an outdoor lot. The ratio is 0.55 spaces per unit. 0.5.
0.5.
Okay. That's on per bed.
Okay.
Sorry, depends on if you're asking per beds or units, but yes, 0.55 per unit. How we typically look at it.
Right, and I heard you base that on the majority of people using Metro.
I wouldn't say the majority. Our visitors and employees arrive from a variety of methods. So some of them I'm sure will use Metro, some will walk, some will bike. I'm sure many will take the bus, and then I'm sure plenty of them will also drive their own car.
So I raised the concern with that ratio because actually that location, and I drive public transit all my life. So that location is not all that friendly to somebody who doesn't drive and has to use public transit. It's okay, but I'm concerned that it's really lower than it needs to be, particularly for senior independent living. And the improvements to the sidewalks and the intersections are very, very important, and will encourage people to use mass transit. But nonetheless, I am concerned that actually that wouldn't necessarily be either wise or a good choice for seniors, and assuming that they aren't going to be driving and they may be using your vehicle as well, service. I think, kind of concerns me. I actually, if this was a location, if this was a regular residential building, because it is pretty far from, the subway corridor, what the ratio would be? I think it's higher, is it?
The policy that, most of these that come through, Doris, you're right, are in metro areas. And so the residential parking policy applies specifically to metro areas. I don't believe that there's, and staff or someone else may correct me, I don't believe there's any policy related to multifamily parking in this part of the county. So we don't have the same guideposts that we do in those other areas that would tell us, these are the recommended ranges.
And the other thing that I'm concerned about is that I know that the people in the assisted living wing or whatever portion of the building will have aides during the day and in the evening, but they are a minority, right? So people who are living in independent living, like over there at the Jefferson, they hire their own personal assistants from an agency or whatever, and they have to come and they have to be able to park as well. And.
That's a good question. Does that happen here?
So sorry, just to be clear, for this building, there will not be any independent living. It's all assisted living and memory care. And so it's all assisted living and memory care.
All of it's assisted living? I thought you said earlier that.
It's
Okay,
all
I
assisted living.
misunderstood
So the
that.
employees are the care managers. There's no
Okay,
additional.
so 100% of the units are.
Approximately 2/3, so approximately 65.
Oh, I got it wrong. I thought you said 2/3 and 1/3, and I got which was. I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay, but the other thing is that you build in a drop-off area for the building, right?
Correct.
And that will be available to paratransit, right? Paratransit.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to ask about circulating through, what would you consider the accessible route of travel from the entrance to the building to the nearest public transit? Because that now will be critical for the residents.
So the wonderful thing about this site is we actually have a bus stop directly in front of the building. To be able to walk.
But the path of travel.
So if this is the front door here, you walk out and turn right, and you're on the sidewalk, and the bus stop is literally.
But you don't have to go up and down any curves.
Nope, it's all fully accessible.
Okay, and the curb ramps are also going to have detectable warnings?
Yes.
Okay. So, and will traffic lights there, I believe, which is a very difficult crossing for anybody, will they have audible signals?
Yes, they will.
They won't, they should.
Yes, they will.
Absolutely should.
At the intersection here at 7th, this is where there's a traffic light. There'll be new traffic control equipment with audible sensors installed here at the corner of 7th.
You're going to have a lot of people in that building who are all of them are seniors, and you're going to have a lot of people who may have vision impairment. Should absolutely have.
Absolutely agree.
Great, thank you, Doris. I'm going to go to Commissioner Stevens online.
Sorry, I don't know if that's me. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sorry, not a commissioner, but I appreciate you recognizing me, and thanks, Clyde, for your presentation. One, just want to start really thankful for the previous commissioner talking about the energy and sustainability from Arlington Heights. There is a considerable concern about a building, a facility that's going to be within our community for decades, maybe 100+ years, and just hitting the LEED's silver certification. We definitely love to see something go above and beyond that, and look at where the energy sources are coming from and being renewable by 2035, which is our community energy plan. To parking and that aspect, looking at the number of employees you'll have, I think that the main shift is 33 employees, and changing over to 17. If you said all those people were driving, that's 50 parking spots of your 54. It doesn't leave a lot of room for residents and your visitors. So I know you're asking for a deviation of the zoning. I think from the Arlington Heights, we're worried about the overflow that might go onto 7th and 8th Street and elsewhere from that timeline. I think that was my major concern. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It's a good point. So I guess the first thing I'll say is it's very rare that every one of our employees will have their own individual car to drive. Is point one. And point two, during that shift changeover, it's not like all 33 people stay until all 17 people get there and then they leave. So it's more of a flow than that. So the possibility of every employee having their own vehicle and all being parked there at the same time would be, would frankly just not happen. It's much more likely that many of our employees will use public transportation, they'll car share, they'll be dropped off by relatives. So it'll actually be a much lower portion of the employees that will actually drive than the full load.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was wondering also if you have any data that maybe talks to how much you think would be using public transportation, bikes, car sharing, like you said.
Yeah, it's usually typically less than 50% of employees have their own personal vehicle that they use. Especially for a location like this that's so well served by public transportation and is bikeable and walkable by the nearby.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other transportation?
I forgot one tiny thing.
Take it away, Pam.
If you would consider, you're having charging stations for cars, would you consider having them for bikes? Like, what are some people who bike to work on an electric bike?
I don't think that's something we studied. Would they be plugged into a regular exterior outlet?
I think so.
If we do, I imagine we probably do have a number of exterior outlets, but we could certainly make sure that we have a couple near where people would park their bikes. That would be helpful for charging bikes.
Another good reason to have some coverage over the bikes.
Yes, and in the rear, the bike will actually, spots are covered by an overhang. Yeah, of course.
Great. All right, are we ready to wrap up transportation and move to community benefits? Great. Community benefits is now the topic of discussion. Does anybody have any questions? There were 2 items on the list, right, that were community benefits. I don't have.
Right, so, there's the affordable housing piece, and then there's just also kind of the streetscape improvements. Transportation.
What was this?
Streetscape improvements, expanded sidewalks.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Yeah.
So I just wanted to revisit the affordable housing. So being that seniors are on now limited budgets, they don't have income coming in unless they've been fortunate enough to plan for their retirements and have 401ks and things, but that's not probably the majority. So this building, you have to have a certain level of insurance, maybe, to be able to get in there. So not everybody is going to even be able to take advantage of this building. So I'm probably one of the ones that always says we should have on-site affordable units. And this could become a deal breaker for me if we don't have that at this site, because it's becoming a crisis. And it's unfortunate in an expensive place like this where people have done whatever they can do to hold on to stay here, that they wouldn't be able to take advantage of a place like this. So that's just my take.
I second.
Thank you. These are just, okay, Doris?
But just for comparison, the 2/3 that are assisted living units, how much per month you estimate that they'll cost the renters? These are all rentals, right?
Yes, they're all rentals. You're asking for the assisted living units?
No, I'm asking how much you think they'll cost. I'm talking about the total cost to whoever's paying the bill, the rent, and the services. So it's all one bill, right? I know what it is over at Jefferson because I've helped some people, who were considering and/or moved over there. Is it in that range?
Right, so we of course haven't set the prices for this building, but it would likely be in the range of $4,000 to $6,000 or more per month. Depending, $4,000 to $6,000 a month, depending on the unit size, the level of care. There's a number of factors that go into it.
So, but I'm talking about the assisted living units.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
4 to 6. So it's less than it is over there.
I'm not sure what the current price is.
Well, I know it's 7,000.
Does that include the food and all the other?
For an individual.
For an individual, so we're talking about the rental unit of a unit would likely be $46,000 a month. You then typically have other services, including care, that are then in addition to that. So you're probably not that far off, Doris. It could be, as you said, all in maybe $7,000 to $10,000 for everything for an individual, correct?
So my point is that the whole issue of an affordable housing plan for this development and ones like it are very important, because the only people you're going to be able to attract, or that you're going to attract and be able to go in there to live, will be people with upper middle class and upper incomes, and to sustain their housing over time. And what I mean by that is, then what do you do if somebody rents and then they run out of the money to pay for the rent and the services, which is all one package anyhow? If they run themselves down, what will happen to them? What, if they aren't able to stay, they can't afford it anymore, then what are they supposed to do? Worst of all, it's suggested that it's a place where they can get both housing and services, but if you run out of the money, what's going to happen?
It's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that, because actually, Jim, you had asked me this before, and I wanted to make sure I had a chance to answer it too. Go back to your earlier point that we do find that many of our residents, whether they have the retirement funds to fund this or not, a lot of them who own their own homes in places like Arlington, when they move out, they're able to sell their homes and take a large nest egg of the equity of their homes, which allows them to afford living here at the care that they need, which we do find for a lot of seniors. In terms of your question, which is a good one, so first of all, before anyone moves into a Sunrise, our team meets with them and their family members and reviews their financial picture to make sure they understand what the costs are, what they're likely to be over time, and what that full picture looks like, to ensure that they have the assets to pay for it, because as we all understand, it's a not inexpensive proposition. So that's step one. Step two, once someone moves in, of course, their finances are monitored by their family and by our team members to make sure exactly what you're talking about doesn't happen, where they don't spend down their full nest egg and aren't able to afford it anymore. Once they get to a point where perhaps things are starting to get tight, there's a number of solutions we have. Number one, we have a variety of different unit sizes and types. So someone rents a 2-bedroom, maybe their nest egg is decreasing, they move to a 1-bedroom, even a studio, to try to reduce costs. In addition, at Sunrises, we have quite a bit of sharing of units between both family members and friends. If there's a 2-bedroom unit, you could have 2 residents, one in one bedroom, one in the other, which also significantly reduces the cost. So because of these factors, the initial planning and the tracking over time, it's extremely rare we have residents that run out of funds. In the very, very extreme case that happens, we would then, of course, work with the resident and their family to find somewhere they could afford, which is typically an assisted living location that accepts Medicaid. And obviously, if those aren't available, residents are welcome to stay until we're able to find somewhere for them to relocate.
So it's just going to be like many of the continuing care residences, where if you run out of the money, or just like the people that I know are in, some Sunrise development, they have to go into a nursing home, spend down to Medicaid, and that's where they'll be stuck, which essentially, the reason that I want to emphasize this or site plan review and whatever else is that we're not advancing the community benefit and the right under the Americans with Disabilities Act for each person to be able to remain in the community, whatever their disability or functional limitation is, because they're a senior, because it's obvious that some of the people in this housing, for multifamily rental, are going to have both physical and sensory disabilities as well. And so I'm concerned that we're not advancing the need for affordable units that are accessible, particularly if you select off-site units, or has been done in Crystal City, and that's just terrible. And or if you choose just to the investment in the fund, and that neighborhood over there are many hardworking, middle class, lower income folks who are working really hard, and their family members need to be able to take advantage of having the advantage of the system in their community.
That's a great point. Thank you, Doris.
I'm sorry, I guess I made my ending.
No, it's good. It's good. It's a good point.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you all for your comments. And these are comments we've heard from literally from day one. The first thing we heard when we kind of rolled this project out to today. So we hear you loud and clear and appreciate the continued feedback. I think part of what makes this difficult is the lack of a policy in the county, right? I mean, we have the Affordable Housing Master Plan. It mentions it's got one reference to seniors in the whole thing. I know that there's some work on maybe some other reviews of this, of senior housing, senior affordable housing, but it isn't something that we see any kind of guidance in the policies or in the zoning ordinance for, except for the affordable housing baseline contribution. I mean, most of the time when we see a project come forward that's providing affordable units, I'd say keep in mind that they are getting bonus density for it, right? It's pumping up that density. Here, it's a much more modest size of project beyond just the issues I mentioned with the cost of the care too. So all that to say, we do hear you. We are continuing to work on this. There are challenges both in terms of making the economics make sense, how is this structured, and then what the staff recommendation or policy is, because I don't know that there is one.
Great. Well, thank you, Kedrick. I'm going to go to commissioners online. So I'll start with Kevin, and then I'll go to Eric. Kevin, you're on.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question and then a general comment. First question is, affordability is near and dear to my heart. I've been on board of APA for 2 times now. But this is a question for Sunrise and then also just for staff. Is there any precedent for on-site affordability in a market rate product like this? I have not come across it in my professional career. And so just from a feasibility standpoint, the concept of delivering affordability in a high acuity setting like this, I'm just curious. That's my question. Secondly, I would just like to thank you for your thoughtful design here. I think this is a needed asset for our community, and hopefully, and not anytime soon. But this is a place that I would consider putting my parents in. And just on behalf of Economic Development Commission, I think I would just like to encourage the community to stretch how we think about community benefits in this current economic environment. This is a very challenging environment where we are going to see a lot of value diminution in our commercial corridor, specifically in office. And so we are going to need developments like this that are going to be revenue positive from a tax base perspective and also generate jobs. So that's a general comment, and just offer that for consideration.
Thank you for your comments and to your question. To answer briefly, yes, there is precedent. Yes, it is something that Sunrise has done before, although it continues to be extremely challenging proposition, but something we're continuing to study and something that we certainly are studying for Arlington, but continues to be challenging for a number of the reasons that Ken just laid out here.
Great, thank you. Did staff have any?
I would just say, with this project itself, since it isn't pursuing any bonus density, the kind of affordable housing policy that applies, is that base contribution that the applicant is meeting. So kind of just wanted to add that.
Great, thank you. All right, Commissioner Eric.
Thanks. I'm going to keep pulling on this thread of affordable housing. So, and maybe this is a question for our staff. So, because this project isn't really just housing, it's assisted living, so it's housing plus services. Um, if the applicant here were to pursue on-site units, how would that what would that sort of look like as far as a contribution? Because it's not just the units themselves. I'm thinking, and my real question is sort of this: like, from a value perspective, what would we be looking at if Sunrise said, you know what, we will do an on-site unit or two or whatever, versus, you know, even smaller projects, we might get 2 or 3 or 4 units. Would it, I don't think the ordinance would be any different, but could the contribution level sort of be different because these units aren't just units, they're units plus services?
Right. So in this case, there would be a requirement of 1 on-site affordable unit or 1 off-site affordable unit. That's just kind of how the math shakes out. So I guess, you know, in simple terms, if they were doing on-site, it would be 1 unit. And like you mentioned, because it's not just an affordable rent, it's also the services that go into it. Obviously, that 1 unit and that contribution would be more than the typical affordable unit. So, you know, staff would have to work with the applicant on, you know, what that looks like. But, you know, at the very least, in order to meet affordable housing requirement, the applicant does have the option to provide that 1 unit on site.
And I would just add to that, Commissioner Berge, to your point, I mean, it brings up a good issue, is that the way that the ordinance is written, you've got the option for an on-site unit or cash. And those are scaled together, but that cash contribution is scaled with an on-site multifamily unit. It's not scaled for an on-site unit plus care, plus food, plus transportation. So you get a little bit out of whack when you're looking at the comparison of dollars versus the value and the cost of an affordable senior unit versus an affordable apartment building. That's just not what the ordinance is looking for.
Yeah, exactly. If I could just respond to that briefly, Leo. What I'm sort of getting at here for folks to think about, and I really appreciate all the comments, and I align myself with the concerns about affordability, and especially affordability for seniors is a dire need, as I think as we've all kind of acknowledged here. I think the way that I'm sort of thinking about this is, you know, we have these affordability tools, but we also have a lot of limitations. And what is going to be the best way for us to sort of achieve our goals? And I think I would contrast this with some, I would say, more standard site plans where there is, you know, an ability to get on site versus a contribution. And, you know, we do have Arlington County staff analysis about the value of those on-site units, and we might not be getting as much value with the cash contribution versus the on-site units. That being said, I think because this is assisted living, it's distinguishable. It's a different scenario. And so maybe, you know, the concerns are very well founded here, but it may be better in the county's interest here to have that cash, but to consider continuing this conversation. Thanks. Sorry for the interruption.
No, all good. Thank you. Jim.
Yeah, what strikes me here is with Congress, all of us want more affordable housing, especially for seniors. But clearly our comprehensive plan, really, this is a gap. It's just missing from the comp plan, how to really deal with this. So we're sort of talking past each other on this. I mean, this is something we really are going to have to grapple with and have our housing component of the comprehensive plan specifically address seniors who have specific needs for assisted living, memory care, that sort of thing. Overall, the county is way fewer units than the overall demand. Even with this project and the other Sunrise project, we're still going to be way behind of what the demand is for such units in this county. And that's at every level, not just for the wealthy. It's at every income level. We're terribly under-serving this community. And you know, this project is a needed project, but the gap is there for affordability for a huge number of seniors in the county. And we're just not grappling, as an entity, we're not grappling with that because it is not in the comp plan. And that's something we should probably be raising at PC for recommending to the.
Yeah, it does feel like this is a bigger conversation.
It's a way
than the
bigger
project,
conversation,
So I
and
think that's a
This is
fair-
needed, but one unit, even if they have one affordable unit, it's clearly not going to do much of anything.
Right.
We have to be thinking different ways, and that's why it has to be looked at with the comprehensive plan. How do we approach this? How do we find ways to make this type of housing available to our senior population? Anyway.
Thank you, Jim. Doris, you had a comment?
Yes, on the issue of affordable assisted living, and senior housing, that type of housing with services, just like Eric pointed out, is something that's rare. And yet there are so many seniors who need it and can't afford it and can't stay in this community, even though they've been here for, ages or decades. And so that flies in the face of the Affordable Housing Master Plan, in my view. But my concern is this. I know that assisted living and home and community-based services and such have some funding sources. I also know that there are funding sources through HUD that pay for affordable units and or construction of these kinds of projects. So there is funding that's available that could back a deal like this. And so what we're saying is for Arlington and the Northern Virginia community, the only available thing that we're incentivizing is, commercial assisted living projects that are profit making, and people of moderate and low incomes are not going to have the opportunity to be in that kind of environment as they age. And if you run out of money, you may have money when you go in, and it's just too bad. That's it. And I realize that's a longer conversation, but maybe making the step to have even include one unit, it will start us on a trail. And the last thing I'll say is, because if it's just when all these there have been a number of these projects coming up just recently. If it's all contributions to the AHIF, I think the AHIF is wonderful, except are we going to designate that money should be used for affordable senior or assisted living housing? Or is it going to be used not to support the senior community or the disability community, but rather everyone else, and send the rest of the disability community and the senior community off to wherever in Hoboken, Virginia, where they might be afford something. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. I think, I'm gonna sort of wrap. Oh, Nia?
Yeah. So, not to belabor this, but I believe this was the Ballston Macy SPRC when we finally went through the planning commission. There were 3 of us, I believe, that abstained on that before it went to the county board for this very issue, cash versus units. And I will applaud Christian Dorsey when it got to the county board, and you can go back. You might have been, were you there too? And he basically said to the applicant, it was never the intent of the county to just easily do the cash contribution. We are looking for more housing. So 1 unit is a step forward versus no unit. And the more that we have anything coming up, if we say, well, one unit doesn't mean anything, next one comes up, one unit doesn't mean anything, next one, we're never going to get anywhere with this. So this is really troublesome for me.
Thank you, Nia. Commissioner Steinberger?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Olivan. So I've been listening to the conversation, and I'm glad we're having it, because I think ultimately what's key here is that we are looking for more creative solutions. We know that there's a concern, especially with affordable housing and with an aging population, and this is thinking creatively about what we can do as a county to address some of that need, I think is where the conversation has to go. And so I'm pleased we're going in that direction. I certainly support exploring this further, and I hope it is something that is determined to be workable, because I think if we're able to provide on-site units with the care included and understanding that is a different sort of commodity than when developers make a cash contribution period, I think it's important to move in that direction and potentially set a standard for future projects to advance this even further. So if this is kind of the first step in that direction and we're testing the waters here, I view that as a positive, and let's see what we can sort of move forward with. So I just wanted to express that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. I'm going to start tying this subject up. Go to community public comment section. The one thing is we did get an email from Commissioner Stockwell, who was not able to be here tonight. And so this is a little out of order, but he was at a legitimate other meeting. So I'm going to share his email really quickly. He said the applicant should be commended for incremental positives, more trees, better use of green space, less permeable surface, and kudos. I think he meant more permeable surfaces. And kudos to the applicant for continuing to expand biophilic design. He does have a few concerns, which are the trees. It's good that there are more trees. It's odd to put the bulk of them in the parking lot. I heard the committee calling for a strategy to de-emphasize the parking lot, and it appears to have the same configuration. Extra trees, while welcome, would be better served if they were resident oriented. I think he means sort of, where people can enjoy them or sit on around them. Also, as to the bird-friendly glass request, the applicant seems to be saying it's not needed. We had this conversation before, but I'm just highlighting it. I think the committee might question the applicant's assumptions. Why wouldn't a half window with a screen still provide an opportunity for conflict? And is the applicant saying some conflicts are okay, but just Sunrise isn't using UV glasses? Glass. I just wanted to share that with you, so add that to your list of to-do. I feel like a lot of these issues were covered. I think perhaps the one thing is on the trees on the parking, which I find slightly interesting, although, parking shade and heat sink issues is good. So, it is a sustainability issue. I am a little out of order. So yes, you're right to call me out on that. I probably should have done this a little earlier. But with that, I think I am done with my with our agenda here. And we can go to public comments. Do we have anyone signed up for public comments in the room? Any hands up? So we're good. Do we have anyone signed up online?
Yes, we do have 2 people signed up for public comment, and it'll pop up on the screen momentarily.
Great. So do we have a timer? Oh, perfect. We can do 3 minutes, I guess. That's good. All right. Please introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, I'm Eileen Janis. I live in Arlington Heights. Just verifying that you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, just a couple of comments. For Sunrise, I like your new illustrations, but it looked to me like the shingles were really dark. And as far as I know, Energy Star shingles are much lighter. So I hope the intention is to have Energy Star shingles on the building, and it's just that the illustrations are colorful and decorative, but not accurate. My second comment is for the county, and it's about the street divider. If I'm coming from Columbia Pike and I want to drop somebody off, I do not want to make a U-turn on 7th Street. And if I've met somebody and I'm coming out from the Port Cochet and I want to go towards Route 50, I don't want to have to turn right and make a U-turn at 7th Street. It seems to me that there's good lines of sight there so that you could be able to make both a left and a right coming out of the building in safety, and that's much better than U-turns. So I hope you will reconsider having the divider prevent people getting across the street. And then my third comment, it was about moving vans, and someone asked about them, but I couldn't hear the reply. So when I look at 7th Street, turning into the facility to try and back in under your loading dock, it doesn't look to me like it's adequate for a large moving van. And even though your residents won't have a lot of furniture, that doesn't mean that a moving van won't have 5 sets of furniture in it. I mean, you can't control the size of the moving van that comes in. So it would be lovely to see an illustration of a moving van easily getting in and out of that facility. Thanks so very much.
Thank you, Eileen. I will provide the opportunity for a quick response. No. Go ahead.
Oh, great, sorry. I didn't know if you were at the end. Eileen, thank you for the 2 comments. It might be hard for me to bring it up now, but it was hard to tell in the illustration, but there is actually a space adjacent to the loading dock where you pull in and you back up into the space. We do have an illustration that proves it out based on our civil engineering drawing. So I think if I can show you that drawing, you'd feel more comfortable, which I'm happy to do. Regarding the shingles, I absolutely agree with you. I had the exact same comment for my architecture team. I said, they look a little bit dark, and they've assured me that in real life, they will be much lighter than how they look in the illustration.
Great, thank you. All right, on to our next public comment. Dr. Byrne.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I was unable to attend the first meetings of the SPRC on this subject of the conflict. So I'll be saying things I probably should have said then. The landscape plan for this project contains many deficiencies. These include, number 1, the submission's conceptual landscape plan does not contain any lists of shrubs, perennials, and ground covers. This prevents the public from reviewing the list before the Planning Commission and the County Board considering approving your site plan. The final site list may contain many undesirable plants that the county's reviewer may not pick up. It's important to have this, I think, before the public hearings. The applicant needs to submit those lists immediately before those commissions of the County Board meet. The impermeable surface parking lots will create stormwater runoff, lack biophilia, and greatly reduce the space available for trees and plantings that can support pollinators. Replace the surface parking lot on the west side of the site with underground parking. Greatly reduce the size of this surface parking lot on the east side of the building. I don't know if you discussed this earlier, but those are big deals. Support the county's 2016 Monarch Pledge. There is too little space for planted landscaping. Replace the surface parking areas and mowed lawns with trees and plants that support falling populations of monarch butterflies and other pollinators. Increase the width of the path. 4. Increase the width of the planting strip. Plant much common milkweed, especially a Syriaca, and I hope the landscape person understands what that plant is. It's very important to plant that. This is the only plant that feeds monarch caterpillars that grows well in Arlington's natural areas. Most site plans and landscape plans do not have this. It's rarely planted. I will probably be writing a letter to the landscape architect that discusses this. But the absence of a planting list, which this applicant has just never proceeded, this particular landscape architect never provides it. Other ones, such as Studio 39, do provide it. This is simply a landscape architect that is not interested in informing the public about his plans in a timely manner. It's a major deficiency in this particular landscape architect, which is, so anyway, those are my comments. Please consider when it comes to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne. Okay, I think with that, no more public speakers. Let's do a quick wrap-up comment since this is the less SPRC. So we have about 10 minutes, let's say, to wrap this up. So if you could start, Doris, any final thoughts and wrap-up comments?
Yeah, I just want to refer back to my comments regarding affordable housing and particularly senior and assisted living, and mentioned that the county already has a model. The model is in a public assisted living facility, Mary Marshall. And so I don't know why we couldn't be able to come up with plans that would, and I would encourage the applicant in good faith maybe to offer an on-site unit or on-site units. I appreciate that you're going to have 10% of the units fully accessible, and looking forward to the project.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, I made my comments before. I do appreciate the changes since the beginning. Changing the color palette actually is quite nice. It's no longer balsam beige. So thank you for that. And the modifications to the massing, I think, work very well too. The additional trees are very, very welcome. Thank you for changing the parking lot. Normally, I mean, I just don't like certain parking lots, but the changes you're making to it make it less worse. So it went the right way. So then that, yeah, it's ready to move ahead.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
For one of my comments, can I ask a quick question? For the landscape architect, will you consider milkweed?
Yeah, I know that that's brought up in a lot of projects, and we are very aware of his requests. You know, at the 4.1 level, we're really just meeting the county requirements for trees, but we like SPU 39 and everyone, it will be a very robust, milkweed, natural biophilic design, and we can stand for that.
And that's part of the final landscape.
Yes,
After.
exactly. Yeah, right. But we can certainly provide for him, what it will look like and just options, but at this time, we're not required.
Great, perfect, thank you.
So one other comment, I hear we do what's required by the county, we do what's required by the county. This is a special project, so very special need. Is it that bad to maybe look in your heart and say, well, let me just go an inch more than what the county asks for?
Great, I'm gonna actually go online to mix it up. Okay, but really briefly.
One sentence.
Okay.
One sentence is, thank you for meeting tonight on this, the anniversary, the 24th anniversary of the United States Supreme Court decision in Olmstead v. LC and EW et al., which clarifies and mandates and affirms the right of people with disabilities, including seniors, to live in the community and not be forced into nursing homes and other institutions. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm gonna go, Eric, you're on.
Very briefly, thank you, Leo, for chairing these meetings. Just want to extend my appreciation to the applicant for all the changes they've made in response to the feedback. I think it's a wonderful project. I really appreciate Doris's comments. It's always good to hear from Doris. I appreciate the conversation about affordability. Feels like there's two conversations we want to continue, and they're related. One of which is, these on-site units versus cash contributions, and then relatedly, how can we as a community further incentivize affordable housing for seniors? Thanks.
Great. I will, anybody that's online, please put your hand up if you want to do closing statements. Kevin, you're on.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to applaud the applicant's efforts here. I think this is a well-designed project. Thank you for being responsive to the community's requests. And on the affordability issue, it does sound like this is much bigger than this one project. I think on the first meeting, I heard that the applicant stated that this is the first senior housing project that's being developed in Arlington County in 20 years. Is that right?
To be clear, there has not been a new project built in 20 years. Artis did have a project approved in North Arlington a few years ago, but they've, as far as I know, no intention of building.
No, they are moving ahead.
Oh, wonderful. Great to hear.
So I think it's important to kind of keep in mind that in 20 years, when we've seen thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of multifamily units get built, there are very few affordable senior housing projects that are being developed in this area, and that speaks to the market forces at play, right? And so as we think about community benefit and affordability, which again is one of the most important issues, not only for this region, but our broader country at large, I think we just need to be measured about that, right? Because this is a very expensive service to be delivered, and it's an issue that we are struggling to solve as a country. So I just offer that as a backdrop. We need to solve affordability. We need to deliver more affordable units for seniors, specifically in our community. But this is the first project that we're seeing in 20 years. I think it's important for us to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. All right, last call for online participants if you want to have any closing statements. All right. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for being so responsive. It's a great project and I'm glad it's going forward. Affordability is really important, and I'm glad we're going to be continuing this discussion with the Planning Commission and the board and everybody else. We have to figure it out. And it's affordable housing for everybody. Yes, we have to do it for seniors. We have to do it for low-income people, middle-income people. I mean, it's housing that's affordable and affordable housing. We have to. That's good. Thank you.
Audrey?
Yeah, thank you for the project in general. We need housing for seniors of all kinds. Understand the issues about affordability. Doesn't reduce the need for it. So find some way, or I mean, you could do it off-site won't help because there isn't any place. No other facility. My only other, and it's a question that just not really to be answered, but is 10% fully accessible sufficient for this project? Something to think about.
Sure. I think my architecture team is probably better equipped to answer it. Our buildings are fully ADA accessible. We have lots of seniors with walkers and wheelchairs. Just a certain percentage, 10%, that meet a very strict code requirement. Maybe you guys can specify what that is.
Well, to build on that, the advantage of Sunrise is we have a lot of facilities, and so we've talked pretty extensively in terms of the market forces at play, or the type of people who use it. 10% has been studied. So, on a full accessible unit, is that what you're?
Yes.
Basically, on a fully accessible unit, it's more like it goes beyond the. There's a couple different types of accessible types of unit. This is the accessible one, like what you find in a hotel that has full turning radius and all the bathrooms and fully accessible.
And really, all of the other units are also adaptable.
Oh, great.
Quickly?
But yeah, River House is coming soon, and they're going to have a senior housing with that whole building. I don't know if they know the details, but that's more of some kind.
Audrey, are you done?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. With that, I will close this meeting. Thank you, staff, Kevin in particular, for being the point man, and all the support staff. Thank you for the applicant for all the time that you spent listening to us and responding to us and working with us. And then finally, thank you for all the commissioners and all the neighbors that have participated on the meeting and attended and given us their thoughts. With that, we'll see you at the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Here's my bus.
Get your bumps. All right, you've got my contact.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you.